It's Jordan Mulligan from the Mulligan Brothers, and today's interview highlight is about personal grief with Amy Morin, author of the book 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do. Also, today's sponsor is audible.com, where you can pick that book up for free in audio format with the link down below. So click through to that link, you get a free copy of the book, 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do. Thank you to audible.com for sponsoring the video. And also mulliganbrothers.com, where you can buy the merchandise and Inspire Change t-shirts that again help support this movement. This video is talking about personal grief. For me, on the 2 occasions I've spoken to Amy, that is what we covered quite a lot, because it's something that I have been through myself. It's something I've really struggled with. I lost my son 6 years ago now, sorry. And dealing with the personal grief has been very difficult. And I feel like I'm coming to the tail end of that journey, and Amy has been a massive part of that, and the book has been a massive part of that. So yeah, this is a really good one for me. Let's jump into the interview highlight with Amy Morin. So there was a news story that I saw of yourself where you were stood by the docks, and you looked very happy, successful, you'd had your book come out, and they asked you a question sort of in regards to how you got here, and you talk about sort of the death of the loved ones and the death of your husband, and it reminds me of like that there was the other side of this, the dark side, the difficult side for yourself, for the grief. Was there a point when you was in that grief, when you was in that dark place, where you couldn't see the light, you couldn't see yourself sitting on the edge of the dock with the boat and smiling? Was there ever a point like that for you?
Yeah, after I lost my mom, and then it was 3 years to the day after I lost my mom that I lost my husband. And it took years to feel like, okay, I'm going to rebuild my life. And I did. I got remarried, I got a new house, I got a new job, and life was looking pretty good. And then shortly after that, my father-in-law got diagnosed with terminal cancer. And it was in that moment that I just thought, you know, I've grieved for 10 years. I don't want to grieve any longer. I couldn't imagine losing one more person. And I felt like in that moment, like, well, what's the purpose? You know, you go out there and you do the best you can, you build the best life you can, and boom, boom, boom. If you keep losing people, it's awful. And I just, in that moment, I just couldn't imagine like getting through it. It just felt like, what's next? Or how could I possibly keep losing my loved ones? But then it was also in that moment that I wrote a list of what mentally strong people don't do. And it was a letter to myself about how to get through the next few days, really, is what I was looking at. Because when I lost my mom and my husband, it was sudden and unexpected, but losing my father-in-law, we knew it was coming. And I thought, how do you prepare yourself for this? How do you get through it? And so I would read over this letter, and it was just, hey, don't do these things today and you'll get through it. As long as you don't do these certain things, you'll be fine. And I found that letter to be helpful. So I published the letter on the internet, thinking 3 or 4 people might read it, hoped it would help somebody, but 50 million people read the list. And then I got to write a book about it. And here I am all these years later, still talking about mental strength. I never imagined what was around that next corner. I could really only imagine that things were going to keep getting worse. And we lost my father-in-law shortly after I wrote that letter, and I was still filled with grief, but it was just one of those times in life to remember that even though really bad things happen, something really unexpected that's a wonderful thing could be right around the corner too, and you just never know what's around the corner until you keep going.
It was such a traumatic experience and tough time to go through, and you've been through some awful times. And then on the other side of it, your story that you've shared in your book and your work has helped millions of people. And I just wonder, is there something to that for yourself, that this tragedy and these difficult times for you and horrendous times for yourself at the time as well have helped millions of people through the work?
Yeah, it's amazing to think that my story has helped people. As a therapist, I was always used to hearing people's stories. I never shared my own. So even when my original list of the 13 things mentally strong people don't do went viral, nobody knew why I wrote it. I really had no plans of telling anybody. And it was my friends that said, "You think you should tell the backstory?" And I remember saying, no, like, I'm a therapist. I'm not gonna burden anybody with my personal issues. I'm just gonna put that out there and walk away. And they really convinced me, like, no, you have a story behind it. You should share your story, and which is words I always tell my clients as well. So I thought, okay, let's see what happens. And so it's been an honor now to be able to share with people, okay, I'm not just saying these things because I'm a therapist, but I'm saying because this is what worked for me. And I'm glad I shared my story now to be able to say, It's not just about things I learned from a textbook. These are the things I went through in my own life and they helped me. Maybe they can help you too.
Do you see an importance of doing that kind of work? That, you know, a good friend of ours, Inky Johnson, motivational speaker, he always says that once you've gone through the adversity, reach back over the hill and help people over. Do you see an importance of that, of going through it, but then also once you're through it, helping other people get through a similar situation or offering your advice and wisdom to help them through?
I do, because sometimes people will be like, oh, it's great you got to write a book. Good things happen even though you went through hard times, but it's not like it evens out. I mean, I have books, yes, and that's a really fun thing, but I'd much rather have my loved ones than books. But on the other hand, to be able to say, okay, I've been in the trenches, I know how awful things can be, and yeah, I'll definitely reach out and say, this is what helped me, maybe it can help you. And that's been part of my healing process too, is when I get messages from people who say, gosh, I was really struggling and I read your book and it helped me, just to know, okay, I'm still have some meaning and some purpose, and I'm putting something out there that's helping other people, and hopefully my pain that I went through can somehow be helpful to somebody else.
So I mean, when I look at the book personally, the things that stand out for me is about dealing with grief and difficult times and becoming mentally strong in adversity. But the book itself is beneficial to entrepreneurs and businessmen and athletes, right?
Right. People will say, well, it's all about resilience, right? But I really see resilience as bouncing back from hard times, which is great. But what if we just braced ourselves our entire lives waiting for something horrible to happen? I don't think we should just make our lives about making sure that we somehow get through the next horrible thing that happens. That's not a very good way to live. But instead, it's about reaching your greatest potential, whether you are an athlete or a business person or a stay-at-home parent, whatever it is, to be able to say, I want to be able to think, feel, and do my best at whatever it is I'm doing. And yes, bad things are going to happen, but plenty of good things are going to happen too. And I want to feel like I can enjoy the good times too.
So I think you get clients who are coming in from reactive situations, like bad things have happened and they come in. But what are the sort of issues that people bring in when it's a non-reactive situation? It's somebody who is just coming in for therapy, not off the back of like grief or adversity, but they're coming in for therapy for help with something. What kind of stuff do they bring?
See, early on, it was a lot of people who would say, something horrible's happened, or I have this awful thing going on in my life. And that was in part because insurance companies only paid for therapy if you were ill. We've come a long way, and figuring out, well, what if you only went to the doctor when you were really, really sick? Well, you can prevent a lot of problems by going to the doctor when you feel okay. So now I think people really see therapy differently of, okay, maybe when you're doing okay in life, you can still use that as an opportunity to say, how can I feel even better? Or what kinds of things still might be holding me back that I don't recognize? So I think it's important to be able to put ourselves out there and not just think that therapy is for people who are broken or people who are really sick, but to know sometimes you can talk to a therapist, even when life's okay. And even if it's just a checkup to say, hey, this is what I have going on. Is there anything that you could see from your perspective that maybe I could work on or do differently? And even if it's just to get some peace of mind, if somebody says to you, you're doing a good job, sometimes that's pretty powerful too.
A lot of your work is shared on social media. It's how a lot of people find you. And it's for us, social media is such a positivity. It has such a positive impact. But then there is the flip side of it, the negative side of it. Is there a way that we can use social media and create it into a healthy space for ourselves?
Yeah, our smartphones in our pockets have the power to be amazing tools. Never before have we had something in our hands 24/7 that could help us build mental strength. You can have apps, you can have courses, you can take a meditation, something if you want, you can have something that helps you sleep, you can track your habits every day. I mean, amazing things. However, we know most of us tend to use it because we're just scrolling mindlessly through social media, which we know isn't good for our mental health, yet most of us still spend more time scrolling than we'd like to admit. And then whether we're comparing ourselves because we think everybody else is happy and healthy and lives a wonderful life, or we look at other people's social media accounts and we think, oh, why do they have so many friends and I don't? And then sometimes we just tend to look at our own lives and think, somehow I don't measure up, I'm not good enough. Or we feel like we should be doing more because we see these other people that seem to be doing amazing things and building these amazing businesses. And we think, how come I can't do that? So it certainly has the power to have a negative toll on our mental health. I think if we used it to actually connect with people and make plans with them, that would be great. But so often it becomes a substitute. Instead of spending time with our friends, we just end up using Instagram to communicate with a handful of people, and then we don't go, it takes up the time that we would have spent seeing our friends in person.
And there you go. If you're dealing with personal grief, it's a unique journey for everybody. It's a unique thing. You can't say, go do this, go do that. It's very, very difficult, and you can't read it in a textbook. So, you know, you're on your own journey, read literature, do loads of things. Different things will unlock different parts of the grief journey. I do recommend Amy's book, but it's not going to fix everything, but I do recommend it. The sponsor of the video was audible.com. With that link in the description, you get a free version of the audiobook, or you can choose any audiobook, but you will get, if you click through to that link, you'll get a free 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Amy Morin, is linked down below. The video is also sponsored by mulliganbrothers.com for the merchandise and the t-shirts that help support this movement as well. Thank you so much to Amy for doing this piece with us again. It's, the grief journey for me has been massive, and I can't thank you enough. If you want to see more from Amy Morin, go to her Instagram and check out more free resources from her. And also my Instagram is @JordanMulliganBrother if you want to see what I get up to and how I'm actually dealing with my grief journey and what I'm getting up to. Have a blessed and productive day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.